Hi guys, our topic for our subject, the Philippine history, is about the Marcos regime and the new society 1972 up to 1986. What is a martial law or what is martial law? In its comprehensive sense, includes all laws that have reference to and administered by the military forces of the state. They include the military laws enacted by the law-making body for the government of the armed forces and the rules governing the conduct of military forces in times of war and in place under military occupation. Okay, so the power is not by the people but of the military during this time. Martial law, however, in its strict sense, it is the law which has application when the military arm does not supersede civil authority but is called upon to aid it in the execution of the vital functions according to the Constitution. Martial law is used to bring prisoner or other detainee before the court to determine if the person's imprisonment or detention is lawful. The habeas petition proceeds as a civil action against the state agent, usually a warden, who holds defendant in custody. It can also be used to examine any extradition processes used, amount of bail, and jurisdiction of the court. Writ of habeas corpus. During the martial law, the writ of the habeas corpus was not functioning. The political milieu in 1972, Communist Party of the Philippines, these are groups that against the government of Marcos. Founded by Jose Maria Sison, it is now labeled as the NPA. 1969, there is election. Battle of Mindula, the first quarter storm, Moro National Liberation Front, terror bombing incident and other crimes, the ambush of Juan Ponce in Relay in 1972. The Communist Party of the Philippines, founded by Sison. 1969 presidential elections, Ferdinand Marcos won. The Battle of Mindula, the first quarter storm. These are the pictures during 1986, I guess, when there was a EDSA revolution at the Mindula Bridge near the Malacanang. The Moro National Liberation Front. These are our brother Muslims that was labeled as terrorists during the martial law. There are terror bombing incidents in Joe's department store, Carriedo, Manila, the constitutional site at Quezon City, the Manila Water Works, or Nawasa, and City Hall building in Manila. It was believed it was done by the enemy of the state, but there was some theory, or there are some rumor that it was just done by the government for them to cover up their biggest mistakes. The Plaza Miranda bombing. The ambush of Juan Ponce in Relay, the senator. The new social order or ang bagong lipunan. Declaration of Martial Rule, Proclamation number 1081, September 21, 1972. That's the date of proclamation of the infamous martial law in the Philippines. In every man's success, there is a woman. That's why in every pictures of Ferdinand Marcos, there was Imelda at his back. What is pledges in the martial law? The acronym stands for peace and order, land reform, economic development, development of moral values, government reforms, educational reforms, and social services. The most questionable letter here is letter D, the development of moral values. Is there any moral values in the martial law? On peace and order, the suspension of the writ habeas corpus. The arrest of anti-Marcos individuals, strict media censorship, rallies and demonstration and public meeting are not allowed, curfew, travel ban, you cannot travel from any point or any other territory inside the Philippines, the surrender of firearms and other explosives. On land reform, there is this Presidential Decree number 27, emancipation of tenants from the bondage of the soil, transferring to them the ownership of the land detail and providing the instruments and mechanism thereof. On economic development, there is the agency called the National Economic and Development Authority, NEDA, the bolster and develop the Philippine geothermal plant in Tiwi, Albay, Mount Magiling, and Mount Banahaw in Laguna. Discovery of oil in the west coast of the Palawan. El Nido, Cadyao, Malintok oil fields. Construction of the first nuclear plant in the Philippines in Morong, Bataan, which is now closed. Infrastructure project. Waterports, airports, bridges, dams, irrigation, communication facilities, and schools. No questions. These are done projects. Just like today's Duterte's build and build and build. But of course, there's no problem for that budget. The famous longest bridge in the Philippines during her time, the San Juanico Bridge in Leyte, the Philippine Heart Center building in Manila, the never used nuclear power plant. On government reforms, reorganization plan, restructuring and creating new departments, Metro Manila Commission, the election of the interim Batasang Pambansa, the local election of 1980, the barangay as the basic political unit. On educational reforms, technological and vocational courses, Educational Decree number 6-A, 10-year educational program. On social services, Ministry of Social Services and Development, or the MSSD, Philippine Medical Care Commission, Social Security System, aka the SSS, Government Service Insurance System, the GSIS, pagtulungan sa kinabukasan, ikaw bangko, industriya, gobyerno, or ang pag-ibig. On Philippine tourism, Presidential Decree 189, Department of Tourism, Balikbayan Program, Miss Universe Beauty Pageant in Manila, Trela in Manila, Muhammad Ali versus Jew Fraser. The Government and the Local Market Labor Code of May 1, 1974, Overseas Employment Development Board, National Seaman Board, 11 Regional Skills Training Centers of National Manpower and Youth Council. A policy for our Muslim brothers, the use of local Muslim dialect in elementary schools, scholarship to colleges and universities, development of Mindanao, Golden Mosque in Quiapo, Manila, Islamic Studies Institute in UP, Islamic Affairs Ministry, Tripoli Agreement, Autonomous Region on the Muslim Mindanao. Foreign relation during the Marcos era assured the safety of the U.S. military bases, the Subic Naval Base and the Clark Air Base. ASEAN plus open diplomatic relation with 14 countries, Yugoslavia and Romania. On 1975, open diplomatic relation with the People's Republic of China. On 1976, with Minister Romulu, opened relation with USSR, exchanged ambassadors with 54 countries, and had consulates in 23 countries. The lifting of the martial law, Amnesty International and local churches organization, 8,000 cases of salvaging, a local term for summary execution and kidnapping combined. 50,000 individuals arrested on mere suspicion only or subversions. PD 1784, Proclamation number 2045, the writ of habeas corpus is still suspended. The apex of the Marcos regime, the visit of St. John Paul II, the election of Ronald Reagan, amendment proposal of 1973, Proclamation number 2077, Presidential Decree 1053, failure to vote equals imprisonment. Ferdinand Marcos re-elected for 6 years. The White House, Malacanang Band. What is the role of President Ronald Reagan in the Philippines? Shown in the pictures are the Marcoses and Reagans. The beginning of the end, economic crisis, large budgetary deficits, external debt accumulation, foreign loans, cumulative capital flights, issue of corruption. Here are some estimated Marcos loots by numbers. Recovered funds, 167 billion or $4 billion in the span of 27 years. But compared today, our loan to the international bank is becoming trillion from billion. So there is no way Philippines can recover in a short span of time. Think about it, guys. Do you like to be a Filipino? There is a questions at the end of this video. Please answer it for you to understand more about the topic. New Society, ang bagong lipunan, introduced by Ferdinand Marcos, the deposed dictator. It was meant to improve the image of the country. Idea of the new society or bagong lipunan is to bring about social change. Here are some programs during the martial law era. Dismissal of government officers who were found guilty of corruptions. Severe punishment of drugs or drug pushers. Setting a curfew to solve criminality. Control of the media to publish and broadcast materials in his favor. So, ibig sabihin, pag ang kumpanya tulad ng ABS-CBN ay contrary or adverse to the new government of Marcos, therefore, it will be controlled. Training of citizens to be disciplined and law-abiding. Establishment of theme parks and cultural institution and infrastructure like the Folk Arts Theater in the Ruas Boulevard, Manila. Simply, it is just a cover-up as a good image of the new society or the bagong lipunan. Popularization of indigenous culture, using a lot of government funds to strengthen the military. But there are some abuses during the martial law. According to the author, draconicism or the Marcos administration. There is a suspension of writ of habeas corpus, and there is a desaparecidos, and of course severe torture to those who are against the government. Okay guys, here are the questions for our topic about the martial law. So number 1, what is an example of habeas corpus? What happens when a writ of habeas corpus is granted? What is a good sentence for habeas corpus? Who can issue the writ of habeas corpus? Why should you suspend habeas corpus? And why was the writ of habeas corpus suspended? Okay, another questions for you guys to answer is, why was martial law declared in the Philippines? What happens if martial law goes into effect? Who can declare martial law in the Philippines? And what do you do in case of martial law? Well, those are the questions you should answer guys on the piece of bond paper, and of course submit it in JPEG form to our Google Classroom, and kept the hard copy or the original paper in the brown envelope for submission after midterm exams. Thank you so much. See ya.